Good morning, everybody. It is 9 o'clock in the morning. Yep. All right. And thought we almost had a little technical glitch. It never fails. Okay. Can you hear me, Suzanne?
I can hear you now.
Yay!
Yay!
I even rebooted everything. That's so crazy. Oh, my word. So how are you this morning? We want to welcome everybody to the show. We are... Wow, man, you got to love the internet. I mean, it's so jammed up, and that's okay. We'll figure it all out. So good morning, ma'am. Never fails.
Good morning.
How are you?
Well, I am splendid. Yeah, I'm splendid. How are you?
I'm doing real good. Oh, he's fine. He's sleeping. So I have a brand new puppy who's only eight weeks old. He's crazy. He's good though. Yeah, he's a good boy. So my name is Brenda Neckbottle. I am known as Brenda the HR lady, and my partner in shine here, her name is Suzanne Lucas. She is known
That's me
as the evil HR lady. To start talking about what is going on in the job market and who's hiring and what are we seeing, and it's kind of nutty stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and start flashing how you guys can follow us and you can find us here. And we'll just jump right on into it.
There we go.
How are you? What's happening? I know. Here we go. Wow. So, what's that?
I don't know. Go ahead. We're having a rough time.
Well, we've got a little bit of a lag, so we may step on each other today, but that's okay. We'll figure it out.
That's okay. We'll all be good.
So you go first.
Well, as Brenda said, we're going to be talking today about jobs. And, in the past few months, there's just been so much bad news as far as jobs are concerned. But it turns out that jobs are on the rise. And there's lots of good news. And there's lots of hiring going on in places that you may or may not expect. We all expect that, Amazon is hiring and Walmart is hiring, and that's good. It's always good when anybody's hiring, but that's not the only place that's hiring these days.
Right.
There's
a lot of the jobs that are out. If you don't know this, there's actually, if you log into LinkedIn and in the homepage, you'll see upper right-hand section of the page are a list of various articles. And there's a gentleman by the name of Andrew Seaman, and he actually posts, he's an editor for LinkedIn's Job Seekers and #GetHired. And so he's constantly updating what companies are hiring. And it's kind of an interesting market right now, because it's a partial employer's choice market and it's in a partial employee's choice market. And so a lot of the on the surface, just scanning through this list, are really positions that are designed to continue to build the infrastructure of our economy. And that's service industry, retail. But it's really, really interesting what you're seeing on here. But we're going to throw some other data at you in a little while that kind of shows different industries that are also hiring as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important to focus on the hiring. I mean, you may have heard last week, that American Airlines announced layoffs of 25,000. And you can get caught up in the negative, but there's a lot of positive going on as long as you're not an airplane pilot or a flight attendant. There's not a lot of positive going on for those groups. But for a lot of groups, there is a lot of positive going on right now, which warms my little evil heart.
Your little heart. There is. I mean, there's a lot of negative that's happening. And, the airlines, this is a delayed response to what happened with the coronavirus. I mean, they've been doing everything that they can to keep flights going. And believe it or not, there's obligation to keep flights happening.
Right.
And so, they've been, if you look up in the sky, you don't see nearly as many trailers as you did before. And that's because the airlines are not flying at full capacity. But they do have to keep planes up and in the air for a couple of reasons. Number one, those are the contractual agreements with the municipalities. Believe it or not, you would be surprised that 60% of what goes into an airfare ticket is actually going to pay a wide variety of taxes. But so they have to keep those going. In addition to that, an aircraft actually is safer when it is flying rather than being grounded for an extended period of time. So there's, some pretty interesting considerations going on there. And because of FAA regulations, and I'm a total plane geek, this is the only reason why I know this, is that, especially on the commercial side, is that the reason why they still have flight attendants and, stuff, even flying on empty aircraft, is because that's what's required. So they've had to keep people staffed. But now that all of this is, catching back up with them, it's been several months. If you think about it, March through July, it's 4 months of flying empty flights or scantily, consolidated flights.
Right.
They have to start making these changes. And so those warn notices actually have been going out. I actually have stock in American Airlines and United, and believe it or not, they're going up because shareholders, we recognize that they're doing the right thing, even though it negatively impacts, potentially a lot of people, but they're also negotiating with unions. And so the headline, as what I take the long road here on explaining this, the headline isn't necessarily a direct reflection as to the viability of the company or to the viability of the economy, because the economy is coming back.
It is coming back. It is coming back. And as someone who loves to travel, I have my fingers crossed that the travel industry will bounce back, hopefully sooner rather than later. But, if we want to look at jobs in general, our information on jobs is always going to lag. I can't ever get you today's job information. But the ADP National Employment Report tells us that private sector employment increased by 2,369,000 from May to June. And that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome increase.
Yeah.
And I'm suspecting that the June to July will be bigger. And hopefully will continue to do that. I think it's really important to see that there are jobs out there. And while there is still high unemployment, there is a possibility to get hired. And there are some areas that are struggling to fill positions. Struggling. So now may be the time for a career change. If you can't find something in your field, there are fields that are hiring to a big degree. And this is one of the things that I find very fascinating, is that it's small businesses that are hiring the most. It's not big boys.
They are. And a lot of them, well, no, I agree. And a lot of them are hiring because new opportunities have presented themselves. And, some people, I have no doubt, have utilized the PPP to be able to reinvest into their organization. And because if it's a 1% interest, I mean, that's a better loan that you can get anywhere. So,
Right.
and if you are okay with it being non-forgivable and paying out 1%, that's a smart business decision. I mean, that's a real smart business decision. I don't know all the rules and regulations around it, but that to me would make sense. And I'm not suggesting go do that, do your homework first, but it has definitely piped money back into the economy in a time when we were very much afraid that it was going away, including, and I'm not gonna steal your thunder on this particular topic, but same thing with the additional $600 a week unemployment that is going to expire here very shortly. And I know Suzanne's going to talk about that, but that also pipes money back into the economy as well, because people who have never earned that kind of money are spending that kind of money.
They are. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens when this federal subsidy ends, which is scheduled to end at the end of July. So today is the 21st. So we got 10 days left. And of course, there are people advocating that it be extended, and it might be. Don't know if that's going to happen or not. But if it's not, then for sure you're going to see a lot of more people hitting the help wanted ads. Some people, admittedly, have not been too desperate to find a job because they're making good money with the combined state unemployment and then the federal subsidy. And I mean, why not? If you're getting money, why go out and work for it if it's coming in for free? And it's not working right now isn't risk-free situation. There's going to be, depending on the job, you might have lots of contact with other humans, or lots of contacts with other humans, and that increases your risk, of course, of corona. So there are many people that have been very happy and relieved to have this large unemployment payment, but it's ending. And state unemployment in a lot of states is terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. I mean, terrible. Just can't pay your rent. And so it should be interesting to see what kind of impact that has on recruiting. And Brenda was telling me yesterday as we were prepping, she's been recruiting for some positions that have been a little bit difficult.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've got a couple of, specific, very local type positions, but one of them is I would deem as skilled labor. And that has been the hardest to find, believe it or not. Now, nobody is bit down on that one. And that one kind of surprised me. But on the other hand, it doesn't surprise me. We know in this country there is a significant and gradually decreasing number of people who we would consider knowledgeable in skilled trade. And it's just, there's some reason why it's just not attractive. I mean, maybe it's the Googles where, companies who are mirroring organizations that look like that. And, when you have skilled trade, you don't have an organization that's capable of mirroring a lot of those, beautiful benefits like nap pods and free food for lunch every day, and so I think that has kind of maybe turned around through our educational system, through influence at home. Why would you get a skilled trade job? Well, here's the deal. These jobs are now paying out the nose because they know that they need the right people. I mean, you can make over $100,000 now as a highly skilled electrician. Easy. And companies will fight for you. So it's really interesting stuff. Even a seasonal position such as hiring for lawn care has been. Go ahead.
To say, it's funny that you talk about that with the training. This morning I was on Twitter and there was a woman complaining that she has a PhD and 2 master's degrees and can't seem to get a good job. And there was a lot of conversation back and forth. Some people attacking her, some people attacking the system. But it comes down to, she chose to study something that doesn't have a lot of jobs. Her degrees are in gender studies. So
Yeah.
there's not a huge amount of jobs outside of academia for that. She would have been financially better off to go become an electrician or an auto mechanic. I'm not downplaying anybody's love of education. Go for it. But there isn't always the trade-off there. There isn't always the reward at the end of the degree.
Right. Exactly.
And she actually has her PhD from.
Yeah, and we saw something very similar to this in. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you keep going. It's all right. Like I said, I told you we were going to step on each other. There's a lag today, so you finish your thought.
I was just going to say her degrees are from where mine are, and she's considerably younger than I am. And she's like, why didn't anybody tell me? And I was like, because you weren't paying attention. Because 25 years ago, when I was at that same university working on my PhD, which I dropped out, I didn't get. I have a master's degree, but I didn't get a PhD. They were warning us 25 years ago that academia is overrun with PhDs and you should only be doing this for the love of the subject. So she wasn't paying attention is what the answer is.
Gotcha.
But go ahead.
Well, that's okay. I think I forgot what I was going to say. But even that's okay. This is what happens. You get sleep deprived when you have an 8-week-old puppy. I'm just saying you do. But even, hiring for seasonal positions. Well, now I know what I was going to say. So we saw something exactly like what you were talking about when we were pulling out of the last recession. So about like that 2011, 2012-ish, 13-ish mark. I was helping a client of mine actually recruit for a receptionist position. And I told the client, I said, normally on these circumstances, I wouldn't get involved, but I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to have more people applying for this kind of position, and they're way overqualified for it. I said, there's better use of your time. So let me go ahead and be the one to go through and see if I can't, pull out who's qualified. I'm not kidding. In one day, we had 300 people apply for a receptionist position. One day. And it was the first day that it launched. The second day was 180 people. And I mean, I saw everything under the sun, including people with PhDs. And now we're kind of in that, this market, as I was explaining earlier, it's a partial employer's choice market, which means that the employer can pick and choose, that there's more positions, or there's more people available than positions. And then there's another half of the market where it's an employee's choice, where there's more jobs available than people to fill them. And it's really interesting. And then when we take a look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics data, clearly, in the medical field, there's been a significant ramp up long-term growth. And that is very likely introduced partially, very small amount, I think, from the COVID virus. But the thing is that the long haul look, and I would say in about 10 years, it's probably going to start pulling back. The long haul look is because of the boomers. They're retiring. Their medical needs are much higher. They're a very large percentage of, the population. Their percentage is greater than ours, and we're Gen Xers. And then right behind is the millennials, right? So by the time we get ready to retire, I think we're going to start seeing that there's going to be a scale back in the medical industry, but at least for the next 10 years, 10, 15, possibly 20 years, that's going to continue to grow, mainly because of that very reason. So those are positions that they're even finding skilled labor there is going to be challenged, because when you've got an industry that grows rapidly or a business that grows rapidly, there's no time to work on a succession plan, or there's very little time to really truly grow people that you can have them work from the bottom up in through the organization. So it gets really kind of interesting.
Yeah, and one of the things about talking about the medical field is that that's not an area that you can just ramp up quickly, because it takes a lot of time to train.
Right.
Most hospitals now don't want to hire registered nurses that don't have bachelor's degrees. There is an unbachelor degree registered nurse license, but most hospitals want to hire the bachelor's degree. So that's a minimum of 4 years. Doctors, you got 8 years of school plus your residency, which can be a long time depending on your field. And so there can be a real slow ramp up. Other fields that are growing rapidly may not require quite so much ramp up time. There's a lot of jobs that you can learn if you have a background that is conducive to the area. You can pick it up pretty quick.
Yeah.
And it is possible at this point in time to have a career change. And it's okay to have a career change. And people email me and say, I'm 35. Am I too old to change careers? And I'm like, oh, honey, you're a child. Please go ahead and change your career. I mean, if you plan to retire at 65, you got 30 years.
Yeah.
Please.
And that is a challenge for employers, because everybody's trying to hang on to valued talent, but I think there's a big miss that's taking place overall, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I think the big miss is that companies are not investing in the skill building, and in other words, they may have some level of training in here, but are they very clear on, if I get Joe to this level and he's doing this, which brings in more company revenue, what am I doing to make that happen? When you have somebody that you work with and you work to develop them to get ultimately whatever that level is, and then you're able to compensate them, your retention is likely going to increase because you're filling their bucket. Or same thing with, Joanne, same kind of thing. Are we working to get Joanne to a certain point to where she's helping bring more, whatever role she's doing, she's helping to bring more revenue in. Now that could be a secondary, tertiary support position. That's fine. And then being able to compensate her for that. I think that's a big miss that companies aren't necessarily taking anymore.
I agree with you. I think there's a lot of companies, they want to hire people who can hit the ground running.
Yes.
And they don't wish to invest time and money into training and development. And part of that is because they look at the statistics about how long people stay at their jobs and say, it's not worth it to me to invest in this person because typically speaking, they're going to leave. But what they don't get is that quick turnover is happening because there's no training and development, because there's no career path. If you say to me, here, Suzanne, here is your job. You will be in this job for as long as you're at this company. When I'm ready to move on, which everybody is, I mean, not everybody, but almost everybody, there's very few people that are like, I would like to do this exact job that I am doing today for the next 40 years. Those people exist, but they're few and far between. And they tend to choose jobs that that don't have a lot of upward movement. Most people would prefer to change things up every once in a while and to learn and grow and develop and to earn more money. And so when you
Absolutely. And
say, I don't want to develop you, what you're saying is, I would like you to leave after 2 years.
yeah. And that's the thing, is that success is tied to several things. It's tied to the individual's enrichment in their position, how they feel about it. It's tied to, for the organization's view, like I said, are they helping us meet our number one business objective? Are they helping us drive more revenue into the company? Are they really helping us? Are they a contribution? And I mean, you have to look at everybody in your organization that way, not just your Joes and your Joannes. You have to look at, your receptionists. You have to look at everybody. Are they doing what we need them to do in order to meet our number one business objective and make that objective grow? And if your objective is to sell, record breaking number of widgets, are you able to do that year over year? And if not, you have to take a look at how you've nurtured that talent and what your turnover is. And there is a lot of competition for people who want to feel enriched and feel good about what it is that they're doing, whether they're working in manufacturing on the line or whether they're sitting behind a phone desk answering phones, whether they are at the development level of something, at the director's level, and making bigger decisions. Everybody needs that enrichment, and if that is not part of your strategic plan, you are really missing an opportunity. And that's kind of part and parcel to why it's so hard to find employees to work in an employee's choice market. And some of that goes to, make how you get your recruiting efforts in. But, you don't want to put a facade up for your recruiting efforts to people to come into the company and find out that your recruiting effort and your branding only goes so far. I mean, it has to be systemic throughout the organization.
It absolutely does. It has to go through the organization. And a lot of companies also will say, we're a small company, and 50% of Americans work for businesses of under 500 people. So a lot of people don't work for big companies that have lots and lots of career paths. And managers in these smaller companies often feel like there isn't an opportunity for growth, so there's nothing I should do. But the thing is that anybody can grow and develop their role. It's possible to make roles more effective, get a bigger return on your investment. It's possible to do things more efficiently, to do them better. All of these things ultimately benefit your business and decreases your turnover. And one thing that I want to remind people of is turnover is ridiculously expensive. It's expensive. And
yes,
we don't always see that cost because it doesn't come out in, receipts or specific payroll things, but it's so expensive to lose somebody. And it's far cheaper to send someone to, back when we sent people places, to a training class or to a convention to increase their skills than it is to have that person quit.
Yeah, I mean, I remember years ago when I worked for a Fortune 500 company, this is back in the early 2000s, they estimated that to hire somebody, just to hire somebody, was about $2,500 per person. And that includes all of the labor that goes into interviewing the individuals, that goes into the cost of services in order to post the ads and whatnot, and the cost of, breaking down the cost of the HRS system. It's expensive just to bring somebody in. So imagine if it's expensive to bring somebody in, imagine what your cost is for somebody to exit. you're looking at if that person is borrowed against vacation time, if that person, right? So there's a lot. And, that doesn't contribute to your success. That contributes to being part of this big pool that we've been talking about as to job openings on the rise. And a lot of what we're seeing is that response from having to, shut down the country and stuff like that. And, I had said this when back in February, that if we do start sliding into a recession, which our recession has been very small, and very short-lived, is because we've had a strong market that's working, and it still works even throughout all of this. It's still working. We're on our newest bull run. We've had a couple of little ones, and now we're on a sustained one, which is great. Which means that money is being exchanged in this country in the form of not just trading, but goods and services. And that's brilliant. That's exactly what we would want, because we were in a strong economic position. So when we had to start closing down, the needs of people shifted. It went from entertainment to basic supplies, hence the toilet paper crisis, right? So if you look at these positions, matter of fact, I'm going to pull this list up again here real quick. So the needs of the country have shifted. And so all of these organizations, like I know for a fact Silicon Valley is really struggling right now. They are really, really struggling because the needs of that area have changed from everybody's long-term plans. So if you look at some of the top numbers that are out there, Instacart is looking to hire over 300,000 contracted workers over the next 3 months. That's huge, which means that the gig economy has seen a rise, believe it or not, because everything shifted, right? McDonald's is looking at hiring 260,000 people just this summer alone. Amazon says it's now looking to hire 175,000 new employees for its fulfillment centers. So now you've got Amazon in their delivery business segment of their business. Look at what they're up against. Now they're up against even more the gig economy, and that's the Instacart, right, numbers that I was just talking about, and and the Ubers and all that. And I'll tell you what, it's really hard to get an Uber right now because drivers do not want to be exposed to the potential of whatever your viewpoint is on the coronavirus. It is a real virus, but it's really hard to get an Uber driver, and so therefore it's very profitable to be an Uber driver right now. It's also a risk which people have to assess, but right now they're erring on the side of being conservative. Albertsons, 50,000 people. CVS, 50,000 people. FedEx, 35,000 people. Again, people are staying home and purchasing. Now FedEx's needs are ramping up. Let's see what else we got. Securitas Security Systems and Services, 10,000 security officers. Imagine that, right? And everything that's going on. Let's see. What are some other good ones? Let's take a look down. Big Lots, 5,000. Rite Aid, 5,000. T-Mobile, 5,000. Some of the other government contractors, Raytheon Technology, 3,000 positions for a wide variety of roles. I saw Northrop Grumman, right? So the government, by the way, doesn't ever stop spending money. Banville Pet Hospital, just saying. Banville Pet Hospital, 2,000 people for various open positions. The Cleveland Clinic, 2,000 people. I mean, these are a lot of numbers. Nokia, I just saw 1,000 people. Johnson & Johnson, 1,000 positions up in, likely that's the one in Wisconsin. CGI, 600 roles. Cardinal Health, 600 positions. Biogen, I went too fast, 500 positions. LabCorp, 500 positions. I mean, this is nationwide stuff. ADP, 450. Let's see what are some other good ones. Call out. I'm going to get a little bit down further on the line. Northwest Mutual, 268. Let's see. Farmers Insurance, 230 people. So they're out. The United States Postal Service is looking for 200 positions. HCA Healthcare, 200 people. Netflix, 200. So this is really good information. And it, Allstate, 150 positions. This is just awesome, awesome feedback, because this really does tell you that the world is improving from this standpoint. But how many of those people know where to look? How many of those individuals are considering? I mean, a lot of them are going to be positions that are around the supply chain in the U.S. They have to be.
They have to be. And one of the things that we learned through the shutdown is just how many jobs can be done at home and just how many jobs cannot be done at home. And right. The white collar work at home workforce fared well during the shutdown. I mean, we had to work at home with the whole family around, which could be a little bit annoying, but you kept your job and all was well. But your company also learned that I don't need this person in the office. And if I don't need you in the office, then I don't need to be paying, Silicon Valley wages. And that was something that Mark Zuckerberg said, is to all the Facebook people that went home. He said, you don't have to come back if you don't want to. You can continue working from home. I mean, not all positions, but a lot of positions you can continue working from home. He said, but we're going to cut your salary if you move out of the Bay Area to reflect the local market rate.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's fair and reasonable.
It's totally fair. It's totally fair. And he's finally realized what a lot of people, a lot of businesses, especially that moved to like Texas, knew a long time ago, that doing business in the highest cost of living area in the country isn't the best business move. And so on the one hand, we're going to see people saying, well, if this is a remote position anyway, why can't I hire someone that doesn't need the monster salary because they're living in a place where you can buy a 4-bedroom home for $150,000 instead of, San Francisco, where you can buy a, 4 square foot home for $1 million. And you're going to see some of that movement, and you may end up seeing some outsourcing to cheaper countries as well, as people have realized that. And so on the one hand, where it's been really good for the work at home community, it may not be great in the long run. There are time zone issues, which Brenda and I can attest to, as we are 6 hours but you're going to see movement around as companies realize that they don't have to be in a specific location anymore if they're outside of a supply chain. If you're a supply chain, you do have to be together. You do need to have your Rite Aids and your CVS's where the people are. And so again, those types of businesses that you have to be physically present are going to be something that I'm guessing are going to be more secure in the long run. And that's like with a mechanic or a lawn care business. I cannot outsource my lawn care to India because my lawn is here. If I had a lawn, which I don't because I live in an apartment, but if I had a lawn, I would need someone to come to where I was. If I had a car, I can't ship my car overseas to get the oil changed. I have to do that here, wherever I